Many are calling this Donald Trump's biggest foreign affairs accomplishment, and it happens to come just a few months before presidential elections. So, is this a coincidence or a political plan? We're now joined by Ryan Bohl, Middle East and North African analyst at Stratfor. So, Ryan, this is obviously a historic day, but I'm interested to get your take on what do you make of the timing here? We're just 3 months from the presidential election, and Israel's also facing a coalition crisis. Netanyahu is keen to prove himself amid public outrage over his handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Even if this deal was years in the making, was the timing coincidental?
I suspect that the timing was political, though at the moment it does seem to be more driven by Israeli politics rather than American politics. If, from the American perspective, you're looking for a last-minute October surprise to nudge your poll numbers right before the election, August isn't exactly the month to do it. So at the moment, it definitely appears that from the Israeli side, the Israelis were able to convince the Americans to unveil a plan that must have been in the works for some time.
Now, what went into the making of this deal? I mean, we know that it was in the works for at least a year. Tell us about the key players here.
Well, a lot of this has been facilitated through the White House, and Jared Kushner and his team have been a big part of it. So has Mohammed bin Zayed, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Benjamin Netanyahu and his usual team, Israel Katz, would have all been part of this. And it would have been reaching back probably even longer than just a year, in which they would have been putting out feelers from almost the day that the administration would have taken power in 2017. We saw the Israelis and the Americans begin to coordinate with the East Jerusalem decision for the Americans to recognize that very early on. That was a signal that the Americans were going to treat Israel differently than previous administrations. They were going to treat them preferentially. Almost immediately as well, we also saw the administration reaching out to the Gulf Arabs, specifically the Saudis and the Emiratis, to build a stronger relationship with them. Much of that did seem geared toward this notion of creating a stronger relationship amongst America's allies, by showing them that the United States had their back and that would be able to facilitate some of the deals that many of them had been seeking for some time.
Right. Now, I'd like to talk about Iran for a second here, but you know what, before we get to that, break down what we know about this deal. What is in it?
Well, right now, it's actually more of a pledge for a deal rather than a deal itself.
Okay.
And we are seeing some mixed messages in terms of what's going to happen with annexation. The United States says that annexation is frozen. Netanyahu has recently said annexation is frozen for now. There's no real status on what's to happen with the Palestinian state process. The Emiratis are signaling that they are still interested in a state, even as the Americans have said that they're open to more than one way for that to shake out. So there's a few things that are nebulous, but the things that are concrete is that we will see enhanced diplomatic relations. We're likely to see business relations smooth. We're likely to see greater travel and facilitation of citizens moving from one place to another. Many of those restrictions are going to become tumbling down in the next few weeks and months and years. So there's still some open questions about where it will go and at what pace, but we can definitely say this is an upgraded relationship and it's on a trajectory towards normalization.
All right, so back to Iran now. Let's talk about Iran for a second here. Their power across the region, with the help, of course, of their proxy militias, is increasing. How much do you think their increasing power has affected this deal, and how do you think Iran sees the deal?
Well, Iran very likely sees it with some measure of alarm, although from the Iranian perspective, the Israelis and Emiratis functionally have been cooperating against Iran for many, many years. On the diplomatic front, the Emiratis and the Israelis were on the same page going back to 2010 and even before, when it comes to the Iranian nuclear program and how much influence Iran was able to gain in Iraq after the 2003 U.S. invasion. So in a large sense, the Iranians will see this as something of an admission of what's already going on. But at the same time, the Iranians will also see it with alarm in terms of the normalization of Israel. Remember, Iran's overarching strategic goal is to isolate Israel, change its behavior fundamentally so. Some hardcore ideologues within Iran obviously would like to destroy Israel. But this is a break against it. It's moving towards normalization and breaking out of that isolation strategy. So, so from that standpoint, the Iranians will be seeing it as a setback.
Now, what does this mean then for Trump's peace plan? Is this deal with the United Arab Emirates, a sign that Trump is slowly making headway with the peace process with the Palestinians?
The Palestinians have obviously very quickly rejected these moves. At the moment, the peace process is a one-sided one in terms of what the outside world is imposing on the Palestinians. And the Americans, Israelis, and now the Emiratis are joining together to more or less impose conditions on the Palestinian Authority and Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip. So for the Palestinians, this remains something of the similar situation. They are having conditions put on them by this group of countries, and there's very little ways that they can push back other than diplomatic protest and symbolic measures.
Now, Trump is saying that others are going to follow as well here. What Middle East countries do you see following the United Arab Emirates?
Well, that's everyone's speculation, is what will be the next list of other countries that might normalize after this. Obviously, Egypt's peace treaty in 1979 helped pave the way for Jordan's in 1994. It's likely that the United Arab Emirates diplomatic deal, whether that emerges into a full peace treaty or some other normalization term, will inspire other countries. The Gulf Arabs, many of them do have similar dynamics as the Emiratis. They want access to Israeli tech, they want access to the Israeli market, and the Israelis want access to their markets. And some of them have mutual strategic needs. On that list would fit Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. What order remains to be seen, but all of them do have functional relations with the Israelis already. Saudi Arabia is a little bit more of a mixed bag in that there is a split camp. The Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has shown interest in closer relations with Israel, but the old guard, still embodied in King Salman, still wants to stick to the more traditional stance towards the Palestinian question and is holding out recognition of Israel until the Palestinians have a state. The one that's least likely at the moment is Kuwait. They have a parliament that very much channels popular sentiment, and popular sentiment in Kuwait has not changed the way that we've seen it in some of these smaller Gulf states like the UAE and Qatar, where the Palestinian question just isn't paramount to those citizens anymore.